This is one of my favorite King James Version only arguments. Okay, so you have the Masoretic text, Byzantine text, and the critical text. All right. The King James Version only people only want to use the King James Bible because it has the Masoretic text and it has the Byzantine text for the New Testament, which comes from the Textus Receptus. That's the transmission they want to take. That's what Erasmus did. But now we go on to and the reason why they want to use that is because you have the Sinaiticus and Vaticanus, which is the oldest that we have. But because of they found it in Egypt, and the Vaticanus comes from the Vatican and Rome, which Rome and Egypt in the Bible are bad; they're no good. The King James Version only people don't want to use those. They don't want to read an ESV with that's based off of because the Vaticanus and the Sinaiticus I just read that they are foundational critical text. But anyway, they want to stay to the Masoretic text by the Masoretes, who were Jewish scribes between the 6th and the 10th century. I believe the oldest copy of that we have is the 9th, 10th century, maybe. I think it's called the Leningrad text. I'm not a scholar. This is just my reading. So if I mess something up, forgive me. I'm trying to keep it as accurate as possible. But that's why the King James Version only people, or one of the reasons why the King James Version only people do not want to use that. And also, they want to use the Byzantine text for for out of Antioch, the Antiochian text, Syrian text, whatever you want to call it. And because it says right here in Acts 11:26, and when they had found them and brought them to Antioch for a whole year, they met with the church and taught great many people. And in Antioch, the disciples were first called Christians. So they want to use the Antiochian text where they were first called Christians over Vaticanus out in the Vatican or Sinaiticus that was down in Alexandria, Egypt. The reason why they want to stay away from the Sinaiticus out of Alexandria, Egypt is what I'm about to show you right here. All right. And it's funny that this story would be in the Bible and it's relevant all these years later. All right, Acts 18. I forgot. Okay, Apollos speaks boldly in Ephesus. Okay, now a Jew named Apollos, a native of Alexandria, Egypt, came to Ephesus. He was an eloquent man, competent in the scriptures. Verse 25, he had been instructed in the way of the Lord, and being fervent in spirit, he spoke and taught accurately the things concerning Jesus, though he knew only the baptism of John. Verse 26, he began to speak boldly in the synagogue, but when Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they took him aside and explained to him the way of God more accurately. All right. And when he wished to cross to Achaia, the brothers encouraged him and wrote to the disciples to welcome him. When he arrived, he greatly helped those who through grace had believed. Now, what they're saying here is that he came from Alexandria, preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. But when the two girls heard him, they pulled him aside, like, yo, bro, you ain't preaching it right. And they spoke it to him and taught it to him more accurately. So what they're saying is that the King James Bible out of the Masoretic text and out of Antioch, the Syrian text, is way more reliable than the ESV that comes from the critical text up in Alexandria, the Sinaiticus in Alexandria and Rome for this very reason right here. This very reason. 2,000 years ago, you had a man come from Alexandria speaking about Jesus Christ. He was speaking about Jesus Christ, but his doctrine wasn't quite the same. Now, that's the King James Version only people theory. I use my ESV all the time. I don't want you to think that. Again, like I've said 500 times, I love my KJV. I do. I do. But that is one of my favorite KJV only arguments. And then I've got more. I'm gonna do little videos. Just I want to make them quick. Like this one's even running long. This one's probably gonna be 5 minutes when I'm done. But that is one of the KJV only arguments. Is that why they don't use the critical text and you stick to the KJV because it clearly says in Acts 11:26 why you don't use any text out of Egypt. All right, you guys. I want you to have a great day and hope you enjoyed this little video.